Hello, writer, and welcome back to my life. It's Writer Wednesday, where I give you my tips and advice on the art and the business of writing and tell you how I do what I do as an indie author. Today we're answering the question, when is a book done? Who thought I had an answer to that question? Okay, well, who asked that question? No one asked that question? We made it up ourselves. Why would we put that question on the list? Okay, so all comedy bits aside, I wanted to address this question because it is something I myself wrestled with a lot as I was wrapping up my most recent book release, Bloodlust. Never not marketing. The question of when a book is done is a bit of an eternal question for writers. The English novelist Graham Greene once said the writer is doomed to live in an atmosphere of perpetual failure. Poet Paul Valery said that a poem is never finished, only abandoned, an attitude that authors often apply to their work. The idea being that a book can always be made better. You can always work on it more, you can always put it aside for a while and come back to it with a fresh perspective. So if a book can always be made better, is it ever done? Or is Valery right? Do you just abandon it at some point? Is Greene right? Do you only stop working on a book when you admit you failed at it? Fuck that. Listen, I'm all for beautiful prose, and both those writers' quotes sound really great, but there's a lot of incredible quotes laced with overdoses of beautiful sadness that don't mean squat to anyone who's actually trying to, do something. If you're watching this video, there's a chance that you're already the choir and I might just be preaching what you already think. But to my mind, an attitude or a philosophy is exactly as useful as it helps you accomplish something. In other words, it's as useful as you can use it. Maybe someone with a more fatalist bent can take these quotes and say, you know what, I will never be entirely satisfied with my book, and that's fine. I will abandon it and I will accept that I have failed. Hey, if that helps you click publish, then you do you. But it's not good enough for me. Like I said, it's fatalist, and if I viewed all my past books as abandoned works or failures, I definitely wouldn't feel very good about myself as a person, neurotypical or not. However, trying to find a better answer to this question drifts into existential territory, which is something I feel like we've been doing with alarming frequency recently. What is art, or at least what is good art? How good is good? What is good enough? Okay, stop it, knock it off. You're not allowed to question the fundamentals of your existence or your purpose in life this early in the day. Day drinking, however, is entirely acceptable. Okay, let's return to our fundamentals. You know that I already think your work should have a theme, a message, a point. And what that boils down to is you need to have something you're trying to communicate. Communication is the key here. It's very important. Look in my eyes. See how important it is? Okay, so how does that help us? Well, we're getting to that. Hold your horses. The first thing you need to be trying to do with your book is to communicate, to get your idea across in such a way that the reader can understand it. Once you have gotten the communication across, then you need to work on your technical skill, the artistry, the prose, the pacing, and the rhythm. But all of that stuff is secondary to your communication. You don't want to get so wrapped up in your turns of phrase that you forget to get a point across to your reader. The frickin' goldfinch. Okay, so you start out by making sure that your book is saying what you want it to say, then you get the technical quality as high as you possibly can. What now? Well, this is where the point where having communication as your primary goal becomes not only important, but useful. Because this is when you take your book away from yourself and give it to other people to read. Your spouse, your developmental editors, your beta readers, anyone else who will give you feedback on whether your communication is coming through. That's right, your communication, that's what your first readers, whoever they are supposed to help you with. Because what is communication? It's an idea you get across to someone else. You can do your best guess at whether you're getting your ideas across, but you'll never know for sure until someone takes a look at it and goes, oh, I get it. Or alternatively, what? And so you talk with them. You have the back and forth. You listen to their ideas and figure out brilliant ways to implement them. You work it back and forth until the people you trust to read early versions of your book get what you're trying to say. And then you move on to the rest of the editing process. More work on your language, copy editing, proofreading. Again, the technical stuff. And you work on the technical stuff until you and whoever else is working on your book with you agree that you can't get it too much better than it is already. If this sounds like art by committee, it isn't. If it sounds like I'm just rehashing my editing process video, well, yeah, I kind of am. That's because this entire philosophy is why my editing process is the way that it is. First, I pay attention to story, i.e. the communication, and then I worry about the technical quality. As soon as I and my early readers are convinced that I'm saying what I'm trying to say, I move off that part of the process. And then as soon as my editors and I are convinced that the technical quality is as good as I can make it, it goes to publication. Because, and I've said this before too, there's no such thing as a perfect communication. There is no such thing as a perfect book. There's only improving or getting worse, and you can't improve over something that doesn't exist. Make sure your book says what you want it to say, make sure it's as artistically good as you can make it, and then give it to the world! And start on the next one. They say that perfect is the enemy of done. I see perfect more as the end of a path that you never reach. But each time you say done is one more step along that road. And that's all I've got for you today, writer. All these Writer Wednesday videos released 2 weeks earlier to my $5 patrons on Patreon, and they're the only ones who get to request topics for me to cover. If you want to become one of those awesome and incredibly attractive individuals, I'd really appreciate the support. You can also pick up the Writer Wednesday t-shirt. It tells people you're a writer, so you don't have to. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next Wednesday. Bye!